Welcome, Ms. Abner. I appreciate very much your time for coming and listening to some information about, I know you've had some ESL students in your class, and we've shared those students in the past, and so this presentation is a collaborative one on behalf of EDU 585, which is a class at Georgetown College for English ESL certification. So in this particular class is called Advocacy and Leadership. So it's how to be an advocate and what is the responsibility of schools, what kind of laws apply, that type of thing. So I'm first going to begin with telling you that there's quite a bit of legislation that supports the work of teachers and schools that work with ESL students, and rights that are extended to them through the Civil Rights Act. And so I'm going to name them specifically so that we have a working idea of, what advocates know and how they operate, and just the legal obligations. The first one I'll name is Title VI of the Civil Rights Act of 1964. Now it takes us back to that time in America where civil rights were very much in question. And as a history teacher, yes, you certainly understand that. Specifically for ESL students, schools are obligated to take affirmative steps to ensure that all EL students can meaningfully participate in their educational programs and services. So basically, not to keep them out, but they're, just like all other students. They have the rights to be in the classroom, they have the rights to, under the law, to have meaningful opportunities and high-quality education. Under that same act, it prohibits discrimination against race, color, or national origin. So that's sort of the beginning of where some of the legal foundations are. Now, what I'm reading to you, a couple of these laws, which get kind of wordy, and I didn't want to misspeak, but it's from the Department of Justice and the Department of Education, and they jointly are authoritative over all of these federal laws. There is the Equal Opportunity Act of 1974, and this specifically, very interesting. Schools must act to overcome language barriers that impede equal participation in their instructional programs. So whether it be one student or 5 students or 10 students in a class, a school, or in a district. It's by law that language barriers must be overcome. So, and this dates back to the 70s. So that's one of the laws that protect and support their academic development. There's also an act that I'm learning so much from reading and understanding in this class. It's called the English Language Acquisition, Language Enhancement, and Academic Achievement Act. I know that's a long word, and if I had to memorize it, I probably would at some point. But it's also known as, and this is what's important, maybe more commonly spoken, Title III, Part A of the Elementary and Secondary Schools Act of 1965. And it's this Title III, Part A, that grants funds to schools, to states and schools to improve EL learning to meet academic and achievement standards. Also, this Title III also says that schools must provide high-quality professional development to implement high-quality language instruction programs for the purpose of enabling EL students to speak, listen, read, and write English to meet the challenges of state standards. So it's across all of those language domains, and we'll go into a little bit later about the content standards too. The first thing that a school is obligated to do under all these laws is first identify whether the student is an ESL student or not. And it is very nice. This is a document. I have just the title page. This document's about 100 pages deep, and it's online. But the U.S. Department of Education has an English Learner Toolkit, and it's provided online. It's free to schools and districts, and it tells exactly what are some steps to do to meet all of these legal obligations. The first one is identifying the student. And you may be aware that when a student arrives in school, that they are given a home language survey. There are questions, at least 3 minimum questions that are asked. What was the first language that that student learned? What is the language most often used? And what language is spoken at home? If any of those questions are marked yes, then that student is classified as an ESL student, and the school must act quickly to provide a program. And so now, after the language survey, Kentucky is a member of what we call WIDA. And I have a couple WIDA books here that you can see my collection. I think it's a good library for advocates and ESL teachers. But WIDA, W-I-D-A, stands for World Class Instructional Design and Assessment. And it's a consortium. And what WIDA does is they research and they outline some of the mandates that help to support all these legal obligations. And they use research-based strategies to help to maintain high quality, rigorous content standards. And so once a student has the home language survey, WIDA comes someone, either it be a school within a school, if there's an ESL certified teacher here, or because our elementary school has a very low census of students, the co-op provides us with someone who takes care of schools that only have a few students, and they come and they administer a placement test. Now the placement test is done online, and so we've been able to, just this past year in January, which is when a lot of the continued progress tests are administered, and they're done on the computer just this year. But what they're testing for is what can a student do in the areas of, and this is a great tool for every single classroom teacher, but it is a can-do descriptor for what they can do. So this access test will let you know what level they're on with regard to listening, speaking, reading, and writing. Are they on a level 1? They're just, basically just arrived and learning their language, maybe a little exposure to English. And these are recommendations on what they can do, what they're able to do. And as they progress through an instructional program in a school, hopefully they are progressing toward a level 5, which is basically they're almost ready to exit a program, and this takes a long process. There's two expectations for language. One of them is the conversational language that everyone uses. The other one is academic language. And so this can-do talks a lot about the can-do, the academic language, and which is a major focus of school. And so this is what teachers can use, which is why it's an effective tool, to start making lessons for that student, no matter what grade they may be in. And I know when you had some of your former ESL students, I don't want to name them by name for confidentiality, and I had the same students, were you aware of can-do descriptors and things like that? I know that I was not.
I was either.
And so that's where we'll talk about professional development, because that's also mandated under law and under state law, and so providing teachers with that support is very important. And so you can see there's a big disconnect actually between the 1960s and 70s and now the increased number of students in a school. So the can-dos is fantastic, and so WITA, they provide a lot of that research base, and Kentucky has chosen, along with, there's about 30 other states that are members of WITA. So I don't know if you are aware of that, but we are. There's another WITA document here that breaks down even more some of the standards regarding social studies. That's your area. Social studies, math, science, reading, and so all the major contents, along with, you can see there's some of your music and performing arts and in different grade levels, and so you can have a sample of how to write lessons that will reach them and be effective on their level so that they can achieve. So these are fantastic. Now, WITA is that research-based consortium, and the English Learner Toolkit states that the school should provide a program. They have to really identify an English program that they're going to use, and provide qualified staffing for that. Now this is according to law. The laws also state that paraprofessionals, aides, or tutors may not take the place of qualified teachers. So it's very important that we all, are trained. The laws do warn schools not to water down the curriculum. It's specifically stated. I read these laws, and I found that to be very interesting, very explicitly said. Also, to limit the amount of time that an ESL student is segregated from the mainstream, so it should not be unnecessary time away from the mainstream. So there is another tool kit, if you will, that a big organization, NEA, which you're a member of KEA, I know I am, and NEA has been advocating for students a long time. In fact, it was some of their early meetings that caused some of the legal things to come about. And they have published for all of teachers a book called All In, How Educators Can Advocate for English Language Learners. And those kind of things in here include some of the similar information about the strategies, how to connect home with school, which is very important, how to use the primary language, the heritage language of the students. And so this is a fantastic tool to use. And I have all these, and I'll have them in my library, and you can look at those. The other very important group is TESOL. Now, this is something of interest to you. TESOL carries out the work of WIDA. So TESOL is the Teachers of English to Speakers of Other Languages. And they have standards that teachers can use also to provide the high quality opportunities and for students to learn, as well as they have a text standard book, which includes a lot of technology is so much a part of the 21st century learner, as we were talking about earlier today. And so the text standards are also available through TESOL, which are wonderful documents. It is important to understand that from the student's perspective, when they come here, they bring with them their culture, their background, their experiences, and it's unlike what we may have experienced before. And this book was written by my professor, Dr. Crystal Brody, who is a teacher, my teacher of this course, actually, EDU 585. And she is an immigrant. She is a naturalized citizen. She has a student in school, a child in school, and so she wrote this book. She's from a perspective of students that come to a brand new school and they don't know some of the basics. So this is good to rely on. A couple of things to follow up here, and that is characteristics of a culturally receptive school. The parents are welcome, and there's a lot of energy that goes to try to pull them in and communicate with them. The faculty and the staff are unified with acceptability for support. The programs are inclusive and supportive. Minority groups are identified and they're celebrated, making a student feel comfortable where they are and in a positive learning environment. Cooperative groups and conflict resolutions. So the schools have a lot to adhere to try to provide for ESL students according to law. And then there's also the ethics, the role of a teacher. Our everyday classroom interactions with the students, we model that positive relationship to the student, and we see them as very valuable, and they add to the classroom. And so that is very important. An emphasis on using their primary language is definitely something that an advocate will do, and holding those legal obligations high so that students can achieve and feel safe and supported where they are. So also there's another important aspect of the role of a teacher is what we do. It does affect policy. So like site-based, relationships and policies that really do still support the law and sort of, are more defined for our environment for them. So, do you have any questions? I feel like I'm excited, rushing through, but I hope that you, and I have provided for you the links to all of these, specifically these online documents from the toolkit and the advocate guide. But do you have any questions for me or comments or anything like that?
No, just I know when we did work with those students from other countries and their culture, just learning the culture and letting them share it with the rest of the students and being accepted in the classroom was amazing. And how our students here in our district do accept those type of students, which just makes it that welcoming.
Absolutely.
So, yeah.
What you said is textbook.
It is. So it's
And
like-
that's really, really supporting their culture. And
It
that's
is.
exactly what we do, is invite them to share. And so that's wonderful. Thank you for your time.
Thank you for sharing.
And
It's
you're
very
welcome.
insightful for the
Yes.
next round of students that we possibly all have.
Absolutely. By 2025, 1 out of every 4 students are said to be an ESL student. So there are up-and-coming groups that will come. So, but it's good to be prepared, and thank you. Thank you.
Thank you for having me.
You're welcome.